I see daycare as a symptom of a bigger problem. First of all, daycare is terrible for children, absolutely terrible for children and their developing brains, okay? But it's a symptom of a bigger problem, which is that people are not well versed. Policymakers, educators, parents, pediatricians, employers, they're not well versed in child development. We all need to be well versed in child development because many of us at some point in our lives will raise children. And so it's a very important thing to be educated about. And so, you know, I often think that the push for universal, what I call warehousing children or day orphanages, and, you know, those are strong terms, but they're true. And so, you know, say it as it is, as they say. So the problem with it is that it's dangerous for children, but it's out of ignorance. I'm going to use the word ignorance. It's a harsh word, I know, but it is out of ignorance because I do believe that if policymakers knew, if parents knew why daycare is so very bad for children, they would not create these policies. That there has been a lot of push to make people believe that daycare is good for children, or at least neutral, that it doesn't do harm, but it does incredible harm. So from 0 to 3, a child's brain is incredibly neurologically fragile. Babies are born neurologically fragile. They are not born resilient. They are not born capable of managing stress very much at all. And it is what we call the skin-to-skin contact of their primary attachment figure, usually their mother. It is the soothing of that baby from moment to moment that helps that baby to learn emotional regulation, how to keep their feelings from going too high or too low, and to give them a deep, deep sense of safety and security. That safety and security, you know, can I say I was on a farm this week and I was on your farm?
Our farm, and, okay, that's right.
And,
which was a great joy.
And I was around horses, and I love horses. And I'll tell you that horses have a prey response. They have a response which is they're very skittish around people.
Friends, it's good to be able to announce my new Substack, which will be known as Our Civilizational Moment. The Substack will explore the pressing issues facing countries like ours, loosely called the West, the democratic countries, and how they're playing out in the country that I love and hope you do too, ours, Australia. I'll offer thoughts on the events and trends alongside contributions from some very knowledgeable friends and people I respect. Click the link in the description, subscribe, and share the essays with your friends and family. Let's do everything we can to bring back the Australia that we love, but which we're losing.
All prey are, because they know, they're very vigilant. They know that they could be chased and eaten by a predator. Not that there are many predators in Australia now, but babies are very much like that. They come into this world receptive for connection, but very, very fearful. Our brains are wired to be fearful because that's a survival mode for us as humans. We're born so incredibly vulnerable, unlike other species. I mean, even horses get up and can run pretty quickly. Zebras get up and can run. Humans have to be cared for by their mothers for a very long time before they are capable of managing the stress of a very stressful world. And so what we've done is we have, as a culture, projected onto very, very young human beings that they are more capable of managing stress than their brains actually are. Their brains are not yet wired to manage cortisol levels that high. And so I think if policymakers knew, Albanese or any policymaker knew, that what they were doing is putting babies into situations that elevate their cortisol levels. There are studies to show that babies who are put in daycare have very, very high salivary cortisol levels. They test the salivary cortisol levels, and they are through the roof in babies who are separated from their mothers or primary attachment figures under the age of 3. And so when you raise those levels of stress hormones in the brain, it actually doesn't allow the brain to develop in a normal way. It ends up forcing the brain to develop in a pathologically adaptive, neurologically compromised way. And if we taught parents and if we taught policymakers that in fact they are damaging those children's brains, possibly forever, because there are longitudinal studies to show that children who are insecurely attached at 12 months are still insecurely attached. 72% of them are insecurely attached 20 years later. That means an insecurely attached baby, which is correlated with all kinds of mental illness. There are different attachment disorders, we call them, which are, again, pathological adaptations of a baby's brain to cope with too much stress more than they can handle. And what happens with those babies is those pathological defenses are fragile, they're weak, they're not strong. It's not like developing organic independence or organic, what we say, organic interdependence, organic safety that gives you a feeling that you can go out into the world and manage stress in the future. We are developing a shell of defenses that helps them to cope in the moment, but makes them very susceptible and fragile in the future to breakdown. And that is what we are seeing. And that is what the hopelessness is about. Because a child who is given a deep sense of security is a child who is hopeful, who is optimistic, who seeks the good in human beings, who trusts others and trusts the world around them. So we teach children to either trust your environment, and your environment is your mother and your father, or we teach them to distrust it. And so we are teaching children to distrust their environment. And so what would you expect then when they're adolescents and adults? Of course they're going to distrust the environment. They're going to distrust their governments. They're going to distrust their parents. They're going to distrust the adults that are around them. What would you expect?